Okay. And waiting a few moments for everyone to join us. Lots of participants coming from across the Ottawa Catholic School Board and the OCDSB Public School Board. Welcome. Okay, so I'll get started to stay on time. My name is Jennifer Gauthier. I'm a consultant at the Ottawa Catholic School Board for 7 to 12 Science and 9 to 12 Phys Ed. And I am pleased to introduce our presenter today, Joanne Mack. She is a career connection job coach at Community Living Mississauga, supporting people who have an intellectual disability to gain and maintain positive, meaningful employment. She successfully navigated a career from digital design to social services, and she is passionate about connecting and helping people find meaningful work through 10 plus years of job hunting experience. In her interview skills workshop, Joanne will share valuable insights from her own career journey, which spans across roles in graphic and UX design, tech startups, nonprofits, social services, restaurants, retail, childcare, telemarketing, and facilitation. So we're so happy to have your wealth of knowledge today, Joanne, and I will pass it over to you to begin. Oh, and one more thing, I apologize. Sorry. If anyone has any questions throughout the presentation for Joanne, there is a Q&A box that you can use. So please feel free to share your thoughts, feelings, or any questions you might have, and I will be asking those in real time with Joanne as she goes through the presentation. We will also have 10 minutes at the end for Q&A. Over to you.
Thanks so much, Jennifer, for the intro. I wish I could see everybody, but I guess I'm just looking at myself on this screen. But I want to thank everybody for joining because there's a lot of sessions happening this morning. So I really appreciate you guys taking your time today to come join this one and learn some interviewing skills. I've had a lot of jobs in the past. I'm a career changer, so I'm hoping I can bring sort of unique perspective, something that maybe it's not so easily Googleable for you. But today I want to focus on using storytelling to create memorable interview responses. But would love to also first get to know a little bit about who's joining us today. So if you haven't used Mentimeter before, you can scan this QR code, or you can go to menti.com on your laptop or on your phone, and you can join using the code on top there. And you can just text in your response, where are you from? If you want to introduce yourself with your name, and what you're hoping to learn. So I see there's like 75 plus people here. Would love to get to know some of you folks and where you're joining from. Oh, there's 80 people here as well. We're not using the chat today, so we're relying on menti.com. But Jennifer, you mentioned the Q&A as well, right? Oh, you're muted.
There we go. Sorry. So yes, there's a box at the bottom right for anyone joining from a Chromebook or a laptop Q&A. That will take you to that feature if you'd like to.
Okay. Someone said how to build confidence for interviews. Yes. Interviews personally make me incredibly anxious. So I find the more prepared that I am, the more that I feel like I can be successful in these interviews for sure. Yeah, I would love to see some more people join the Mentimeter. I'm from Ottawa and I'm hoping to learn how to be confident in an interview. Awesome. I'm curious to learn about interview skills so I can build more confidence. A lot of people looking to build confidence, so I like that. I know what to do so I can leave an impression on to interviewers. Great, great. I'd love to see a few more responses. So in the Mentimeter, there's going to be lots of opportunities for you guys to share kind of your opinions. There's going to be some polls. Let me just get rid of this. I have to get an interview, building confidence for speaking publicly to a person I don't know. Exactly. Hoping to learn from employees look for a potential employee. That's great. What's the best way to prepare for an interview? For sure. Appreciate you guys sharing your responses. I'm gonna wait for a couple more. Getting confident during an interview. What to expect from interviewers? Alta Vista. Okay, perfect. Thanks for sharing, everybody. Good responses. All right. I'm going to move on to some of the next icebreakers. Sorry, first though, we'll go through some workshop rules. So just some guidelines to make sure that this is a respectful space and that we're, all gonna have a good learning experience here. So I just want to make sure that everyone is present, stays focused and avoids distractions. I just want to make the most of our time here together. Since there's a lot of workshops, want to make sure that this is a good space to facilitate that learning. Want to make sure we respect everyone's ideas, so making sure we're listening actively, keeping an open mind, making sure that everyone's perspective is, or make sure that we know that it's valuable. Also having one speaker at a time. I don't know if participants are allowed to share their mics, but just to ensure clarity and respect, just making sure we're one speaker at a time. Again, I'm not sure if participants can share, but if you could raise your hand to share if that's possible, Jennifer will call on you. And there's lots of opportunities, again, to share your experiences. So it's a lot more fun having 130 plus people share than just having me speak the entire time. So definitely encourage that. And if you have questions, please feel free to use the Q&A to ask. This is a learning space and the questions are all gonna help us grow and kind of learn here. So again, no silly questions, just wanna make sure that everybody feels comfortable sharing. So I just want to touch a little bit about Community Living Mississauga, which is the organization that I work for. So maybe you're familiar with them, maybe you are from Mississauga, or maybe you know somebody who supported through us. So we provide support to people who have an intellectual disability. Our mission is to ensure that their quality of life in the community is meaningfully improved. I work in a department called Career Connection. So we connect inclusive businesses with employment candidates who have an intellectual disability. I work as a job coach, so we support people to find, secure, and maintain competitive employment. So feel free to check out our website or also follow us on Instagram as well through Career Connection or Community Living Mississauga. If you know somebody or if you yourself, or if you're ever looking for employment opportunities as well, we have a lot of programs that run from 24/7 residential supports or respite programs, summer recreation programs, or if you're looking for referrals for services, as well as I think this will be more relevant for a lot of young folks here, is that we have a lot of recruiting opportunities in the summertime for our summer programs. So we recruit probably up to 50 to 60 young people every summer to work as summer staff for our summer camps. So if that's something you're interested in, you can check us out probably in the new year when we do start recruiting, and check out our careers page. But moving on, would like to kind of break the ice and get to know each other a little bit more. Again, please use the Mentimeter. Would love to know what some of your plans are after high school. So I don't know if you guys have started thinking about this, but again, please join the Mentimeter if you'd like to share your input. Are you going to post-secondary education? Are you going straight to work to gain some work experience? Are you taking a gap year? Maybe you want to do some traveling before you decide what's next. Or maybe you don't know yet, or maybe there's a response that's not up there. Who knows? But so we have a lot of people heading to post-secondary education, so probably university or college, or any sort of additional education. We have some people going straight to work. Some people taking a gap year. Honestly, I would have loved to take a gap year thinking back about it. I'm surprised not to see more people don't know yet because it's like a big question to think about what you're going to do after high school. Okay, cool. I would love to know what kind of jobs you've worked or what kind of job you would like to find. I know at this point, especially a lot of people in high school, you probably have had your first or second job, or maybe, yeah, it's usually like a part-time job or something, like a summer job, babysitting, arts commission. Interesting. Yeah, maybe you're an artist. Maybe you have your own like side hustle, your own business. Maybe you work at Tim Hortons, construction, Cineplex. That's a great first job, or just like a great high school job, working the maybe swim instructor. Nice. Food truck, pet sitting, lifeguard, bakery. Who is a neurologist here? That's amazing. Okay, cool. Awesome. Yeah, it's nice to see kind of like what sort of experienced people are looking for. And I love seeing the jobs people are interested in pursuing. I got where did it go? Future astrophysicist. Really cool. Pediatrician, teaching art, looking for a first job. Yeah, maybe you haven't had a job before, and here's this where you're looking for tips, right? All right, thanks for sharing, guys. All right. So would love to hear what you guys think are some of the challenges of job interviews. I remember from one of the first icebreakers, some people were talking about like, getting the confidence to get into a job interview and making sure you're successful. I stutter. It's scary. There's a lot of anxiety. Yes, anxiety is the big one for me as well. Like someone just said, yeah, like standing out, avoiding cliches. Exactly. Sounding genuine. I really like that. I think that's a big thing for a lot of youth these days, that they don't want to be they want to sound genuine. They don't want to have their responses come out cookie cutter or inauthentic, right? Really appreciate everybody participating here. All right. So what I want to focus on in kind of this workshop that maybe you haven't quite thought too much about before was leveraging storytelling in your interviews. And the reason why I say this is because storytelling is like one of the oldest forms of communication. Storytelling helps people emotionally connect to what you're sharing. The more emotionally connected we are to the message, the more memorable that the message is, right? And also helps people stay engaged while you're speaking, right? So what's something I want to bring is like, how do you use this like narrative format to kind of think about your responses differently in a way where you can craft a really like elegant response that speaks well to your experience and is concise and engaging. So if you think about the structure of a story, it's got this sort of like beginning, middle, and end. So think about the structure of it, and then think about the kind of arc of that story. You've got a plot where, at the beginning, you're usually kind of like setting the stage and you're setting the characters. And then there's some sort of conflict that you're trying to resolve. There's some sort of like rising action. There's like a climax, right? And then there's like the middle where you kind of reach the high point, and then towards the end, there's like some sort of resolution, right? You'll notice like in stories, like the more change there is in a story arc, the more memorable and interesting it is, which is why I think like underdog stories are so interesting, because there's always this high point of like the main character overcoming an obstacle. And this is also why we love like underdogs in like movies and film, in stories, in sports, anything like that, right? So think about, how you can take the structure of that, how you can think about it with it as characters, think about kind of the arc of the emotions that are experienced within that story, right? I want to focus on a couple questions that I think are the hardest questions to work on or to successfully answer in an interview, which is the first one is tell me about yourself. Feel free to add like a little thumbs up if you feel like you've answered this question before or like butchered this question or like didn't know how to answer this question. Usually, this question is the first and the most important question, in my opinion, and one of the hardest questions to answer. Because usually, what I think people's initial responses is just to regurgitate their resume or to just go on this long tangent about their life story. And you just kind of go on and on. You don't really know how to wrap it up. For this question in particular, the interviewer wants to know if you're the right fit for the position. They want to see how well you can communicate your experience and suitability in a short period of time. So I find this question is really almost like an art form, to be honest. It takes a lot of skill and a lot of practice to be able to answer this question successfully and also answer it in a way that it feels represents you and represents you as like a genuine candidate who's interested and motivated to work this job. So how you want to answer this, don't answer it like you see in the meme there. But you want to align your response to the job description. It should speak to why you're a good fit. It shouldn't take you anything more than 60 to 90 seconds. So think about, if you ever heard of what an elevator pitch is, you could kind of use this kind of like an elevator pitch. You want to practice your response so that it's clear, concise, and it sounds effortless. Ideally, I like to try to memorize my tell me about yourself question. But you also want to memorize just the key parts of it. So when you are answering if you're interviewing for different companies or different places, you want to be able to slightly tweak it so the experience is relevant to that job description, right? You could think about yourself as the main character. So think about yourself as like the hero of your own story. And think about that story structure we looked at at the beginning. So it has beginning, middle, and end. There's characters, you're the main character. What is the arc of your story? There's a beginning. So actually with the beginning, you want to start with your current situation. Where are you working now? Have you graduated somewhere recently? What are you currently doing in your current job? And then in the middle, you want to talk about your past experience. You want to highlight transferable skills, relevant accomplishments as per the job posting you're applying for. And then to wrap it up nicely, which I find is hard for people to do, is you want to tie it back to like that present moment. What made you apply to that job? What makes you want to work there? And of course, sometimes we want to work somewhere because we need the money. To be honest, like being young people and being broke is hard sometimes. But that answer is not going to fly with any employer. So you want to be able to connect that to like company values or really reflect deep down in terms of like, why do I want to work here? Like, am I trying to build a skill that I can build on because I want to work in a type of role in the future? Do I feel like this company resonates with my values? Am I really a social person? So I want to be working in a role where I'm talking to people. Think about those things. Think about why you would be a good fit and keep those things in mind. Like what's your character like since you're the main character? What's their history? What's their strengths or what are their goals? So those are things you want to keep in mind. Here's an example. Might not be the best example, but I think it's an example that might be aligned to some of the experience that you guys might have. So there's a beginning. You're setting a current situation. You're setting the stage, sorry. I'm a dedicated, enthusiastic, and a dependable recent graduate from Cloverdale Secondary School. Then you might want to say a little bit more than that, but I'm just going to keep it short. You want to get to the middle. So that's you're talking about your past experience, your transferable experience and skills. I volunteered for many projects similar to retail services to understand what a role in this industry might be like. For example, I was in charge of a quarterly fundraiser at my school giving me cash handling and customer service experience. And then you want to end it to speak to that present moment of like why you want to work there. As retail allows me to interact with various people, I think it's an excellent way to continue developing my customer service skills. I'm hoping to improve these skills by working with a customer-centric brand such as yours. I'm looking for a collaborative environment where I can learn and grow and provide real value to my team. So it's short and concise. It touches all the important bits that an employer would like to hear, like your relevant experience and skills and your motivation behind applying for that job, right? Next, I want to move to the STAR method. Has anyone heard of the STAR method before? You might have heard of it, you might have not. That's okay. That's why we're here. A little, most no's, some yeses. The STAR method is good because like the story arc, this like narrative format, it's like a framework or structure that you can apply to multiple questions to make them more effective and memorable. All right, so a lot of no's, which is okay because that's why we're here. So the STAR method is a storytelling technique that can be used to structure answers to behavioral questions. So behavioral questions assess how you would respond in a given professional setting or situation. So any basically tell me about a time when question, or when someone's asking for like a story and how you respond, or like a situation and how you responded to that. Some examples of these behavioral questions could be around teamwork, communication, problem solving, adaptability, time management, prioritization, and customer service and conflict resolution. So describe a time when you worked with someone different from yourself or resolved a conflict in a team. How did you handle that? Share an example of how you addressed a challenging situation or adapted to change under pressure. What was the outcome? Tell me about a time when you had to meet tight deadlines or juggle multiple tasks. How did you prioritize? Describe a situation where you handled a difficult customer or resolved a disagreement. What approach did you take? Some of you, depending on your experience, may or may not have experienced or went through an interview where you've gotten these types of questions. You likely would get a question like this, and as you get older and gain more experience, these questions will be more specific and more complex. So learning how to answer a behavioral question and using a framework to answer that is a really smart thing to learn, I think, at this age or like level of experience that you're at. So what STAR stands for is situation, task, action, and result. So for situation, it kind of follows again like a story format. You want to set the stage of what's going on, fill in the details of the specific event. For the task, you want to explain what you were responsible for that situation. Were you a customer service rep? Were you a lifeguard? Were you like a cashier? What were you responsible for? And then action, you want to describe how you accomplished the task, and result, you want to state the impact of your actions. It could be the impact on your team, on the employer, on a customer. So this could be an example, kind of using that story format of tell me about a time you had to problem solve. So typically, this sort of question would be likely some sort of like conflict resolution question. It's commonly, I think, that. So this is an example that I'm sharing. So situation. In my previous job as a cashier, a customer came in frustrated because they had been overcharged on an item during their last visit. So the task is, I was responsible for resolving their issue and making sure they left satisfied. Action, I listened carefully to the customer's concern, apologized for the mistake, and reviewed the receipt to understand the error. Then I explained our return process and issued a refund for the overcharge, while also providing a small discount on their current purchase to show we valued their business. And the result, the customer left the store satisfied and thanked me for handling the situation professionally. They even mentioned me in a recent Google review because of their positive experience. So that's how you can use the STAR method to frame your answers to these behavioral questions, because it hits on all the important bits in a concise way and speaks to the skills that you utilized and kind of what you're good at and how you're handling that conflict, right? So I find this is a really good method or framework to use, because you can use this on many different types of questions, right? And you can really tailor it based off your experience, your personality, and your skills, right? So some things to keep in mind when you're using the STAR method is to focus on skills. So highlight skills or character traits that are relevant to the question. Use quantifiable results. So you might not have this at the moment, but as you get more work experience, if possible, use numbers and hard data to describe the results. So if you work in sales, if you work in customer service, maybe like customer satisfaction rate is increased, or you increased sales, or you had so many positive Google reviews. Those are some examples. You want to be concise, so keep your answers short and to the point. It's really easy just to go on a tangent on things. It's really hard to keep things short and concise. And also practice. So practice answering questions using the STAR method in mock interviews. So for a lot of those folks who get really nervous and really anxious, the more you're able to practice like speaking in front of anybody, it could be a friend or family member or anybody, the more that you are able to talk to somebody and then rehearse that, the less stuttering, like the less nervous you'll be, because you've practiced so many times already, right? Last thing I want to touch on is accommodations during interviews. So I want to talk about what they are and why they're important, because it is a really important part in our work at community living. So what are accommodations during the interview process? So there are modifications in the interview process to ensure equal opportunity for all candidates. So the goal of accommodation is to remove barriers and provide equitable access to employment opportunities. But some people might not know what that looks like, right? So for example, what it could look like, it could be maybe requesting interview questions ahead of time. Maybe you're someone who works better knowing what to expect, right? Or utilizing assistive technology during the interview. I had supported somebody recently who was hard of hearing, and they had their device with them that was open, that was a text-to-speech app, so they could easily kind of understand what the interviewer was saying in case that their mom was being quiet. Also having a job coach present to support. So as job coaches at Career Connection, so we have some people that we support that prefer to have a job coach there. So we kind of act as just an additional person to clarify questions, or just act as like a person to kind of encourage them to expand on their responses. Just really making sure that they kind of have a person there to help them be successful in the interview. Could be modifying interview location to ensure physical accessibility. Maybe you have certain certain mobility needs, and your interview location is up like a bunch of flights of stairs. Maybe you can request that it's on the ground level or physically accessible, right? Or also providing extra time for candidates with learning disabilities. Maybe some of you need extra time during an exam or a test. Same thing for an interview as well. It never hurts to ask to request for some of these, and maybe you can talk to your support network to help you identify what that might look like and how you can ask for that. I think any inclusive employer wouldn't have an issue of having that conversation of what can help you have a good interview, right? So always, if you are having difficulty trying to figure out how to navigate that conversation, always reach out to your support network, do a little bit of research on how to best, approach that, right? So I want to touch on rejection, since we're kind of nearing the end of the presentation. Want to know how you guys all deal with rejection, because cry. Flipping the table and yelling fit. Yeah, it's really frustrating and really disheartening, especially in a day and age where jobs are, the industries are more competitive, and jobs are more sparse. And yeah, try again. Interns, oh well, yeah, try not to feel discouraged and try again. Say, yeah, it's fine. Shame, guilt, move on, learning from mistakes, putting my head down on my desk. I like how there's a combination of like really feeling your feelings and, you know, trying to be kind to yourself and like, get them next time. Be calm, understanding, and gracious for the opportunity to be interviewed, even if it is disheartening. Thank the interview employer for the employer. I really like that. It's a very mature response. Oh man, yeah, sometimes you have to put on a face and you go home and you cry about it. Yep, I've definitely cried after an interview before. Realize there are maybe other factors that have nothing to do with you. I love that. That's also, it might not even have to do anything about you, right? I generally feel so humiliated, or like I've done something wrong, I'm not good enough. Yes, it can be really disheartening. Learn from it, learn to why I got rejected, and do better. Feel less inclined to try again, especially with handling out so many resumes. Yes, so it can be a very like challenging process to go deal with that. And some people, you might have like a strong support network, some people might not. And sometimes you kind of feel like you have to, kind of tell yourself and that, that you're going to do better next time, ask for advice next time. Yeah. Yeah. So I really appreciate everybody sharing their responses here. There's just so many mixed emotions with dealing with rejection. I think kind of after you let yourself like process those emotions of like, being told no, and maybe you're disheartened because you've handed out so many resumes, or you've applied to so many jobs, or the one job you really wanted, said no. I really like a lot of the responses about like taking it as a learning experience, because I really do think that every experience is a learning experience, even the rejection, right? Because you can I would say, ask for feedback if you haven't. And that way you can figure out how you can improve for the next interview. And I think, yeah, even getting an interview is an accomplishment. Some people find it really hard to even get an interview. So the fact that you're able to like get the interview and get outside of your comfort zone and practice in that really like anxious state of like feeling nervous, and that is hard to replicate in like with your family and friends. So that is such good practice. Even getting that practice, I think, is an accomplishment. And every interview you get is like more experience under your belt. The more you're gonna feel more comfortable in the next one, and the more you'll realize, hey, like, maybe it wasn't me, or maybe, yeah, I kind of like flunked that question. I can learn from it next time. Think of it as like a learning opportunity. And that's kind of how I've dealt with rejection, is that like, just a learning opportunity, and I can take that and then be better for the next one. But I would say definitely asking for feedback for sure. And think about how you can do better for the next interview.
Joanne, do you mind if I jump in? Because there was a relevant
Yeah,
question in the Q&A.
sure.
On the lines of asking for feedback. Some
Yeah.
employers do provide feedback after the interview, which is excellent as a next step to practicing and moving on. If you don't have a successful outcome, this will help you with the feedback piece. But one of the questions, are we able to ask for the interview questions ahead of time? Do employers provide?
I would say sometimes they might not always provide that to you, but I think it never hurts to ask. And if that is like an actual accommodation that you need, I would say it never hurts to ask and to open up that conversation. I would say sometimes you might not get that, but I would say try anyway. And if you can't get them ahead of time, it's a really easy thing to search up. You could just Google the specific role. In the world of AI, this is where you could also use AI to help you out, like ChatGPT, common questions for this interview. And I would practice using those. But yeah, it never hurts to try. But if not, like definitely doing your research will help you there.
That's amazing. Yeah, AI definitely can be a help. Insofar as references, if you're not successful because, let's say, you forgot to ask a reference to be a reference,
Oh,
then the employer follows up. So maybe you can speak to the importance of selecting good references and communication.
yes, you want to make sure you let them know ahead of time. It is not a good look when they reach out and they're kind of off. They're like, they're surprised that, they're not expecting to get that call. Yeah, so I think definitely having a good list of references, whether that's volunteer, professional, sometimes it could be a teacher depending on your level of experience, or it could be like an academic reference as well. Any sort of place where you've like worked with someone on a team or in a more professional setting where you kind of had a responsibility. Maybe you're in a club. Maybe you're in the yearbook committee, you're on the prom committee, maybe you are assistant coach on a team. Try to find somebody who's like a guide to you in that role that can act as a reference. And I would say in every work experience after that, do your best to have a good working relationship with people around you, because every single person you meet could be a potential reference. That could be, and even networking opportunities too. I'll share a story at the end, but like any person you meet could be that link to the next job. So I think the importance of really, I like to keep a running Google document of where I've worked and who could be my reference there. And then when I leave, and if it's possible, I try to get their contact information. Like, hey, I'd love to keep in touch. Can I keep your email or contact? Or it's just to keep tabs. And if you are missing that, like if maybe you keep a phone number, personal phone number of somebody, and then you move on to the next job, you can reach out to them and be like, hey, I'm applying here now. Really enjoyed working with you. Would love to see if you could be my reference. Things like that. Hopefully that helps. Yeah. All right. Thanks for sharing, everyone. Those great questions. I don't. What strategies do you use to prepare for interviews? Yeah, I would love to hear what you guys are currently doing to prepare for interviews. Even if you've never had an interview, are you looking to try an interview? Are you applying to jobs? Like, what have you been doing for those who have had interviews? What helps you prepare from them? How do you hype yourself up before an interview? How do you make sure you are successful? I've done practice interviews. I haven't had one. Practice with my parents. Never had one. Use buzzwords from the job posting. Yes, use keywords from the job listing for sure. And that's also really helpful too. And I'm only speaking to using like AI, because AI can be such like a controversial thing. But I think what a really popular thing people will like, a tip using like ChatGPT is to share the text from the job posting and then say like, pull out the keywords from this job listing. And then you know exactly the words that you want to try to leverage in your resume or in your interview responses. Mock interview with the AI, practice common questions. I ask others who have already worked for their suggestions. Yep. Writing down what I have to say and then saying it out loud and say it again to someone to assert confidence. Yep. Look at company message motto, missing probably mission statement, and try to align with those. Yes, that's great. I love that. Give yourself time to prepare. Yes, yes. These are great. So some of my parting tips for you guys, and also similar to kind of some ones that you've shared as well, is to do your research. You want to make sure you want to go in and you know something about the company, because a lot of the time you're going to get one of these questions like, what do you know about us? What is our mission statement? You want to make sure you find that about us page and you read it before you go to the interview, and make sure, what I like to do is I put like 1 or 2 things that I felt I liked about it. So it's not just like, oh, your mission is XYZ. It's, I really liked how your mission and values align to XYZ, or it's usually something to myself. So you want to try to align yourself to the company. I also want to reflect, why do I want to work here? Sometimes you just need the money, but I find 90% of the time your motivation and intention comes through. And when people can clock that it's not genuine, or you're just there to have a job, which is sometimes honestly the case, that will somehow come through in how you talk and how you act. So I find the more you can kind of find where that internal motivation to apply for that job is, the better it just kind of comes through in how you carry yourself and how you talk to people throughout the interview process and at work as well. Also remember, to be authentic, to be you, this is how you're going to stand out. You can practice so many questions online and just like use like tools to give you like a well-crafted answer, but it's never going to be as authentic and as unique to what you could actually bring with your own skills and your own perspective and your own story. Practice, practice, practice. What I would do is I would have a running Google Doc of all the common questions, how I would respond to them. Somebody said this in the chat, and I would practice them with a friend, and I would try to memorize as much as I could, to be honest. And I would just keep doing that over and over again in front of people. Yeah, if you need to slow down and breathe, make sure you're communicating clearly and concisely. One thing I also like to remember too is if you feel like that imposter syndrome is creeping in, then remember you're also interviewing the employer. So remember to ask questions. You want to be prepared at the end with like, I would say 1 to 3 questions, and just to make them know that you're interested and you have done that extra work to like research them and put in thought into coming up with these questions, right? If they've answered all your questions in the interview process, I like to ask them, what do you like about your role at this company? Because it shows also that you're interested in them as a person, and that it helps you get some insight in terms of what is this person like in the role that they're at. And I think it gives you some things to think about in terms of like, oh, if I were to eventually be in that position, what are some things that I can look out for? And then lastly, every opportunity helps you learn, improve, and network. I'll end with this last story because it's always a fun one to tell, but I had gotten rejected for this interview that I was really distraught over. This was with this like startup company, and I asked for some feedback about like how I did. And she had said that I think during one of the situational questions that I had answered, like some of my responses had come across as like painting my past experience in like a negative light. And I felt really bummed out about that. I was like, kind of like, oh, like, why would I do that? I can't believe I did that. And I was really down about it for a couple of days. But I kind of learned from that, because the funny thing is that for that same company, it was this woman who had worked in digital marketing, and she saw like my portfolio, and she had also freelanced for another company and was like, hey, like I had saw this woman's portfolio interviewing at a different company, but she didn't get it. We should consider interviewing her. And I took what I learned from that interview process and was like, hey, I'm going to talk about the same experience, but I'm going to like paint it as like a learning opportunity. And yeah, that was a job that I eventually got. And that was because the place that I got rejected from, somebody saw what I was doing and was like, that's cool. And then told somebody else about it. And yeah, I didn't apply for that next job after that. They reached out to me, and yeah, it was like, that was like that moment. I was like, wow, you really don't know who you're going to meet or what opportunities are going to come by. And if you take every opportunity as a learning opportunity, yeah, I think that will just eventually lead you to be successful at any sort of role you try to interview for, right?
Joanne, we're
But
getting
anyway,
so close
yeah,
to the end of our time. Sorry, I'm just going to give you the 1
yeah,
minute warning. But there was one final question. Will the
yeah.
participants have access to the Menti slide deck after?
Um, that's a good question. I think if you have this link, that's a good question. I actually don't have the answer to that question. I would love to provide it if I could. I don't know how to do that, but like if they're sharing a recording,
Yeah,
I guess they could have the slides, but I don't know actually how to do that.
will be available. And I've put that in some of
Yeah,
the questions that were previous. So yes, on the
yeah.
platform for VFairs and launch, all recordings are available. So just
Okay.
to honor time, we're 11:15. I'm going to thank Joanne so much for her time, and hopefully everyone who attended learned a lot of information. And thank you so much for being here and sharing, Joanne.
Thank you everyone for attending. Hope you learned
All
something
right.
and hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks
Have a
everyone.
great day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.